Good afternoon, you guys, or good evening, or good morning for wherever you're watching this. I did not know this was going on. I didn't watch the 2024 debate between Kamala and Trump, but I was like, oh, Central Park 5. I remember this case. I heard about this case. This case happened probably before I was even born, or I was just a baby when this case happened in 1989. And Trump referenced these five men in his speech, and I guess he defamed them in his speech, allegedly. A federal judge has rejected President Donald Trump's effort to dismiss a defamation lawsuit against him filed by the men formerly known as the Central Park Five, who were exonerated after spending more than a decade in prison for the 1989 rape and beating of a woman who was jogging, a white woman. Let me make that clear. She was white. Racism was still heavy in the 80s. U.S. District Judge Wendy Beadlestone in Philadelphia denied Trump's motion to dismiss in a brief Thursday night order. The five men sued Trump in the midst of last fall's presidential election campaign, accusing him of making false and defamatory statements about them during the September 10th debate in Philadelphia with then Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump misstated key facts of the case when Harris brought up the matter, saying, "They admitted. They said they pled guilty." And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled was not guilty, Trump said. The men, Yusuf Solomon, Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise, never pled guilty. They were convicted after jury trials. Also, no victim died. In a statement, their lawyer, Shannon Specter, said they are gratified by the court's ruling and thorough analysis and looking forward to discovery, trial, and the ultimate vindication of these five fine men. The men had asked for compensatory and punitive compensation and punitive damages, saying Trump had knowingly defamed them, purposefully made false statements about them, and sought to inflict severe emotional distress on them. Judge Beadlestone's order dismissed the claim for intentional infliction and emotional distress. Trump's lawyer, Karen, in a statement, called the lawsuit an unfounded and meritless attack on Trump. The judge's dismissal of certain claims is a victory and vowed to continue fighting to protect the First Amendment's right, not just the president, but all Americans. But isn't he trying to take away the First Amendment? And the request to dismiss the case had said the president's statements were protected under Pennsylvania laws that grant civil immunity over statements made on a matter of public concern. The request to dismiss also said Trump's statements were substantially true, that he didn't dispute the men were ultimately exonerated, and that he had knowingly intended to portray his thinking in 1989. When following the men having confessed, Trump purchased a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the reinstatement of the death penalty because they were people of color. At the time, many in New York saw Trump's ad as calling for teens to be executed. The five men had been teenagers when they were accused of the rape and beating of a white woman jogging in New York City Central Park. The five, who are black and one Latino, said they confessed to the crimes under distress. They later recanted, pleading not guilty in court, and were later convicted after jury trials. Their convictions were vindicated in 2022 after another person confessed to the crimes. When the lawsuit was filed, Spector said Trump defamed them in front of 67 million people, which has caused them to seek to clear their names all over again. A Trump campaign spokesperson attacked it at the time as a frivolous election interference lawsuit. So he clearly did. There's no doubt about it. The evidence is on TV. It is publicly recorded. Let's. I'm gonna play some old news clips about this, and it just came to my light this morning about what is going on, and then we will see some reactions of people talking about this. But hell, what do I know? I'm just a talking head. I probably wasn't even born when this happened.
This morning, best-selling crime writer and former New York City prosecutor Linda Fairstein finds herself on trial in the court of public opinion. Her most famous case, the Central Park jogger trial, is now being retold on Netflix.
I didn't see any lady. Kevin. I didn't see any lady.
When They See Us dramatizes the story of 5 black and Latino teenagers, known as the Central Park Five. The young men were wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for raping a white female jogger back in 1989. The story dividing a city. Decades before taking office, real estate developer Donald Trump spent $85,000 on ads in local papers, proclaiming, "Bring back the death penalty." Now, embattled actress Felicity Huffman is playing Fairstein, who oversaw the interrogation of the 5 teens and prosecution for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Fairstein was part of the sex crimes unit, but did not personally try the case.
Our case is they're all guilty.
You tell us exactly what happened.
The men later accused detectives of coercing confessions from them, which Fairstein has long denied. When a serial rapist admitted to the crime in 2002 and his DNA was a match, the 5 men had their convictions vacated after serving more than a decade behind bars. Lester recently sat down with the exonerated men.
But I kept telling the truth for a long time. I started lying because of my father. He told me to tell them what they want to hear. We didn't get an apology, all the time we did for something we didn't do, and it hurts.
Fairstein, now a famous author, is facing backlash on social media with the trending hashtag #CancelLindaFairstein and growing calls to boycott her crime novels. In response, Fairstein has deleted her Twitter account and resigned from the board of trustees at Vassar College, her alma mater. In an interview with the Daily Beast, the director of the Netflix series, Ava DuVernay, alleges that Fairstein attempted to control how she was presented, saying she tried to negotiate conditions for her to speak with me, including approvals over the script, adding, "So you know what my answer was to that, and we didn't talk." Fairstein denies that took place and declined to speak directly with NBC News, but we received this statement from her attorney that reads in part, "Netflix and Ms. DuVernay are doing a terrible disservice to the public and should be ashamed by their irresponsibility in failing to properly research the film and effectively compromising its accuracy." The attorney goes on to quote current Manhattan DA Cyrus Vance, who issued a statement after the 5 men settled a civil case with the city of New York in 2014 for $41 million. After more than a decade in which numerous parties have investigated and litigated the case, there has been no finding of wrongdoing or unprofessional behavior by any of the prosecutors involved.
You better believe that I hate the people that took this girl and raped her brutally. You better believe it. And it's more than anger, it's hatred. And I want society to hate them.
In New York City in the late 80s and early 90s, the case of the Central Park jogger was notorious. In April of 1989, a white woman who had been jogging was found brutally raped and beaten nearly to death in Central Park. Not long after the woman was discovered, 4 black teenagers, 1 Latino teenager were charged and jailed for the crime. The gruesome case whipped up an unbelievable hysteria throughout the city, the media ginning up fears with headlines about wolf packs and roving gangs and wilding. But the 5 boys, ages 14 to 16, had falsely confessed to the crime after hours of police interrogations. They were later tried, convicted, and sentenced to prison. But vindication for the group, known as the Central Park 5, came in 2002, when a convicted murderer and rapist confessed to the crime. And that confession was then corroborated by DNA. The prison sentences of the Central Park 5 were overturned, but by that time they had already served between 5 and 13 years. In 2014, the men were awarded a $40 million settlement from New York City. The story that had gripped the city for years came to a close, and yet one Manhattan resident's obsession with the case continues to this day. Just weeks after the crime was committed in 1989, Donald Trump took out a full-page ad in 4 New York newspapers advocating the return of the death penalty. And when the city awarded the men a settlement in 2014, Trump wrote an editorial in the Daily News calling the settlement a disgrace. And now, even now, as the presidential nominee for the Republican Party, Trump hasn't allowed science or evidence to change his initial reaction to the case. Just this week, Trump said he still considers the men, again, exonerated by the criminal justice system and by DNA scientific evidence, guilty, issuing a statement saying, quote, they admitted they were guilty. The police doing the original investigation say they were guilty. The fact that case was settled with so much evidence against them is outrageous. The woman, so badly injured, will never be the same.
April.
Mr. President, will you apologize to Central Park 5? They've been exonerated. There have been videos and movies shown about the case, and you came out with a full-page ad saying that they should die, that they should have the death penalty.
Why do you bring that question up now? It's an interesting time to bring it up. You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. If you look at Linda Fairstein and if you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should never have settled that case. So we'll leave it at that.
35 years ago, my friends and I were in prison for a crime we did not commit. Our youth was stolen from us. Every day as we walked into courtroom, people screamed at us, threatened us because of Donald Trump.
45 wanted us unalive. He wanted us dead. Today we are exonerated because the actual perpetrator confessed and DNA proved it. That guy says he still stands by the original guilty verdict. He dismisses the scientific evidence rather than admit he was wrong. He has never changed, and he never will. When I say one day, I want you to say, see us. One day, see us. One day, see us. When they see us, America will finally say goodbye to that hateful man.
A judge has ruled that Donald Trump must stand trial for the defaming of the Central Park 5 who were exonerated. This whole case was after there was evidence presented to the courts and the public that these 5 young men had been falsely accused in 1989 and coerced into confessions. And it was established and they were released from jail. Donald Trump still called them names, still accused them of the crime, with full knowledge they had been exonerated.
They said they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty.
In 1989, 5 young black and Latino teenagers were arrested and charged with raping and brutalizing a white female in Central Park. They were coerced into confessing and sentenced to long times in jail once they had been convicted. Many of us in the community protested it. At that time, Donald Trump, who was then a real estate magnate in New York, took out ads in newspapers saying, "Bring back the death penalty," and calling for these 5 young men to be executed. After several years, it was found these young men were innocent. DNA evidence proved that none of them were involved. Donald Trump continued to call them names, continues to say that they were rapists and that they were any sort of things that was absolutely disproven. So they sued him. And to defame people when you had knowledge and reason to believe what you're saying is false, not only suggests that he did it against what is factual, he did it with malice, because it wasn't like this is something he may have thought they did in 1989. This was established, and he continued it anyway. And they sued him, and the courts have now upheld that defamation lawsuit that he has facing these 5 young men suing him can now be tried.
Back many, many years, well, a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5. They admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years.
All right, players, so that is the moment that Frumpy Dump wrote a check that his ass is ultimately going to have to cash if it's up to the Central Park 5, because a judge has refused to dismiss their lawsuit against Frumpy to the motherfucking dump, meaning he's going to have to face them in the court of law. Now, just as a little background, but we should all know this, the 5 men had been teenagers when they were accused of taking advantage of a woman in the worst way and beating her while she was driving in New York City's Central Park. The 5, who are black and Latino, said they confessed to the crimes under duress. They later recanted, pleading not guilty in court, and were later convicted after jury trials. Now, their convictions were ultimately vacated in 2002 after another person confessed to the crime. At the time, Frumpy Dump took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the death penalty for these boys. And he has never apologized for this or backpedaled and pamper-popped out of his comments. He has maintained over the years that he believes that the Central Park 5 are guilty, despite the fact that they have been adjudicated and also awarded a substantial wrongful conviction suit by the state of New York. Now, as you heard during the debate with Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, Frumpy Dump said, and I quote, "They admitted, they said they pled guilty. Well, if they pled guilty, they hurt a person very, very badly and killed a person ultimately, and they pled guilty, then they pled not guilty." In the lawsuit, the Central Park 5 argued that they never pled guilty. They were convicted after jury trials, and also the victim did not pass away. So a couple of days after the debate, the Central Park 5 sued Frumpy Dump for defamation, and ever since then, Frumpy Dump has been trying to backpedal and pamper-pop out of these comments. But a federal judge rejected Frumpy Dump's effort to dismiss that lawsuit, and this lawsuit will be allowed to go forward. Central Park 5 are asking for punitive damages, saying that Frumpy Dump knowingly defamed them, purposely made false statements about them, and sought to inflict severe emotional distress upon them. But in trying to dismiss the case, Frumpy Dump's Cracker Jack Box legal team argued that the comments are a matter of public opinion. And he also said that the statements he made were substantially true. All right, players, so put your thoughts in the comments. The lawsuit will go forward, and I'm going to keep it a stack. I'm as happy as a flea on a dog's ass. Put it in the comments. This is Dope D Mova.
So Donald Trump just took a major legal L. A judge refused his attempt to dismiss the defamation lawsuit brought against him by the exonerated 5. The lawsuit stems from Donald Trump mentioning them during a debate that he had with Kamala Harris when she brought up the fact that he had taken out a $1 million page ad calling for the death penalty of them, and he never apologized even when it came out that they were innocent. And when Kamala Harris called him out on that, he was like, well, a lot of people agreed with me about them being guilty. Again, at no point did he ever acknowledge that they were proven innocent and not guilty. The way that he spoke was basically still implying that they were guilty. And even after they have been exonerated, Donald Trump has never cared to apologize about taking out the ad, about speaking about them being guilty. Obviously, he has no remorse for that. And in his comments, he also doubled down on them being guilty, saying that they also pled guilty, even though now with all the information that we know, they were really coerced into pleading guilty, even when they were innocent. So the lawsuit that they brought against him for defamation can now continue. Hopefully he is found guilty and has to do something for them.
So, you think you've heard it all? Well, wait till you hear how Trump's debate whopper is about to bite him back. Your jaw will drop. I'm the faceless prophet, your no-face truth teller, and today's bombshell. Trump's facing a defamation suit from the Central Park Five because he can't stop fibbing. Buckle up. Here's the scoop. During the 2024 debate, Trump says the Central Park Five, 5 black and Latino guys wrongfully jailed for a 1989 rape, pled guilty, and killed someone. Total bunk. A judge just determined that is a lawsuit. These guys were cleared in 2002. DNA, confession, the works. Trump's stuck in 1989 with his death penalty ads. So Judge Beetlestone in Philly goes, Trump's words can be objectively determined to be false. Trump claimed they copped to murder. Wrong. No one died. They never pled guilty, just got coerced into confessions they ditched. Lawsuits on for reputational damage, filed by Yusuf, Raymond, Kevin, Antron, and Corey. Trump's team whines meritless, but 67 million people saw Trump say those lies on live TV. This hits you where it hurts. These guys spent years locked up for nothing, and now Trump's dragging their names through the mud again. Proverbs 19 verse 5 tells us, a false witness will not go unpunished, nor will he who speaks lies escape. Boom. Trump is false witness on these 5 men. This verse says lies catch up, truth's their shield, and this suits their swing back. Look, this isn't just court drama, it's justice delayed. These men lost years, got a $41 million settlement, and Trump's still smearing them. Everyday folks, parents, workers, feel this. When big shots lie, trust crumbles. I'm raging for the little guy here. Trump's playing truth or dare solo, and losing. Let's cheer this fight. Trump's Central Park 5 lie. Is it fair game or foul? Proverbs 19:5 says liars pay. Is this his bill? Amen if he deserves it. Him? If it's overblown. Comment now. Like, share, subscribe. Faceless Prophet, out. Truth's the real MVP.
For those of you that have been following this mess, this started all the way back in 1989. In 1989, these 5 then boys were falsely accused of harming a woman in Central Park. Donald Trump, using his money and authority, took out a full-page ad to call for the execution of these 5 young men that have now been exonerated. During Donald Trump's campaign, he stood at a podium and during a debate with Kamala Harris and made false claims about things that never happened, made false claims about things that never took place, and then continued to defame these young men that have long since been exonerated for this crime that they didn't commit. This judge right here refuses to dismiss this case, saying Donald Trump needs to be held accountable. Well, it's about fucking time. Donald Trump needs to be held accountable for something. I'm tired of watching this man be charged with all of his criminal activities and then just get away with it. Fuck this shit. I mean, I'm sick and tired of watching this man shit all over the justice system in this country. It's about fucking time more people start standing up to this fucking criminal, this lifelong criminal.